الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله رب السماوات ورب الأرض رب العالمين، وله الكبرياء في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. الحمد لله الذي بنعمته تتم الصالحات. ربنا لك الحمد حتى ترضى، ولك الحمد إذا رضيت، ولك الحمد بعد الرضا. صل اللهم وسلم وبارك على سيد الأولين والآخرين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله وأمين على وحيه. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وانظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. My dear respected brother and sister in Islam, all praise and thanks and glory are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We come on this blessed day of Friday to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all that He has given us, to acknowledge His bounties and favors and countless bounties and gifts and favors, and to remind one another of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of His favors and gifts and blessings, and also of our duties and obligations. Anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed on you, it's in your best interest in this life and in the hereafter. Why? Because Allah loves the best for you. Allah loves His people and wants the best for them. And He is free of all needs. There is nothing that we're going to do that is going to do any good to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If all of us become, all people on earth become very pious, that does not add anything to Allah. And if all people decide to reject the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's not going to hurt Him in any way. So keep that in mind. If you're looking for true happiness and success in this life and in the hereafter, follow the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's the path. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. And Allah knows you more than you know yourself. Just one thing that I wanted to share is the dua that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam made in one of the worst moments he went through in his life, when he was stoned by the people of the city of Ta'if. He went to them with his message, which is good for them, and they replied by stoning him and chasing him, and he was bleeding, and of course the physical harm and emotional devastation. So he made that dua, and he told Aisha later on that was one of the worst moments in his life. And in the middle of that dua, he complained to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, Allahumma ilayka ashku da'fa quwwati wa qillata hilati wa hawani ala nas. And then he telling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that for you I'm referring, or I'm expressing my pain because of my helplessness, ضعف قوتي وقلة حيلتي, and because the way people are treating me, that kind of the disrespect and neglect and harassment that he was exposed to. So he referred that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in the middle of that dua he said, إِن لَمْ يَكُنْ بِكَ غَضَبٌ عَلَيَّ فَلَا أُبَالِي. So Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam remembered the key, which is what? Not the impression of people, not the treatment of people, it's your status with Allah. So, oh Allah, with all of this, if you are still not angry with me, nothing else matters. I don't care about the rest. Keep that in mind, because in our life we may expose to a number of things like this. Sometimes we may expose to injustice, disrespect, people who take us lightly, belittle, ignoring, etc. We may be exposed to a lot of this. Remember that what matters at the end of the day is not what people think of you or even do. What matters is your status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're continuing our journey with the Quran. In the end of Surah Yusuf alayhi salam says, لقد كان في قصصهم عبرة لقد كان في قصصهم عبرة. So the Surah Yusuf, all the surah is a story. لقد كان في قصصهم عبرة لأولي الألباب ما كان حديثا يفترى ولكن تصديق الذي بين يديه وتفصيل كل شيء وهدى ورحمة لقوم يؤمنون. There was certainly in their stories a lesson for those of understanding. Never was a narration invented, but the confirmation of what was before it and detailed explanation of all things and guidance and mercy for a people who believe. And we're going to see how the story of Yusuf and the surah of Yusuf alayhi salam is very rich, all with lessons. And that's also another time that we're going to learn how we can read the Quran to benefit from it. You can read the Surah Yusuf as a story. Very nice story. You can read it as a story, but you don't get much out of it if you don't know how to read the Quran. But if you go to read the Quran to draw those lessons, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصٍ, in their stories there were lessons. Your job is to extract those lessons. That's why you need to read the Quran slowly and with reflection and contemplation. Why? Because as you are reading the text, you need to try to extract the lessons. What is the message? What is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to tell you? Because at the end of the day, the story is just a vehicle. The story is a vehicle through which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is conveying messages for you. And that's unfortunately, the majority of Muslims are missing this point. So they read the Quran, they read the text, but they don't make the effort to extract the message and extract the lessons. And you will see how amazing the Quran is when it comes to lessons and guidance. You all know the story. I mean, Yusuf alayhi salam told his father a dream that he saw. He saw 11 stars and the sun and the moon prostrating to him, making sujood to him. So he told this to his father. His father told him not to share this, and we're going to come to every step here and what can we learn from it. Because so that his brother will not have envy, will not become jealous. Anyway, brothers think that the father is favored Yusuf. So they plotted. In the beginning they thought about killing him, getting rid of him, and then one of them said, no, let's get rid of him in another way. We place him in the bottom of a well and then leave him, somebody will pick him up, and this way we get rid of him without killing him. And that's what happened. Placed him in the bottom of a well, caravan came, took him, sold him to someone, one of the elite, the ruling elite at that time, was raised in that family. Number of things happened there, going to come to them inshallah. And then he was thrown in jail, unjustly again, another dhulm, another injustice. In the beginning he was thrown in a well, the bottom of a well, now he's thrown in jail. Every situation looks hopeless, but there is nothing like this with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah get him out of both, from the first apparently hopeless situation, and then from the second become one of the ruling people or government, people who are in charge, saved that nation or that society from a famine. And then he, of course, accredited all of this to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's take it step by step and see how from here you learn how you read any surah of the Quran or any part of the Quran. So Yusuf, the beginning, told his father, قال يوسف لأبيه يا أبتي إني رأيت 11 كوكبا والشمس والقمر رأيتهم لي ساجدين قال يا بني لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك فيكيد لك كيدا إن الشيطان للإنسان عدو مبين. Yusuf said to his father, O my father, indeed I have seen in a dream 11 stars and the sun and the moon. I saw them prostrating to me. He said, O my son, do not relate your vision, that dream, do not relate it to your brothers. or they will contrive against you a plan. Indeed, shaitan to man is a manifest enemy. Wonderful lesson in parenting and in so many things. One is, don't share this with your brothers. And then he didn't say, tell him that your brothers are bad. He says, shaitan may take advantage of that. Look, the wisdom of Yaqub alayhi salam. Don't share this with your brothers. The lesson here is for us to try to encourage our children not to share something that can make their brothers or sisters jealous. Maybe one of your child is doing much better in school. If you start bragging about that, that can create a problem. So that's first lesson of parenting. It's that try not to allow or encourage anything that can create envy among your children. We're going to come to other lessons in parenting. Unfortunately, we sometimes don't pay attention to this, and sometimes we use it. We come to one of our children and say, look at your brother or sister is doing much better than you. They're smarter, and you are this and that. So that's ignorance. That's what ignorance does when parents, out of good intention, they think they're trying to motivate their children. They end up creating problems and suppressing the personality. Or sometimes we compare them with others. We compare them with other children, with the people of the same age. Look at this, look at that, what they are doing. That's bad. So that's one thing that we learn. The other thing that we learn, it's a phenomenon that probably some of you have noticed. That nowadays in the social media, a lot of people are posting and doing things that looks more like boasting and bragging. You're showing things that other people may not have. So they may create hard feeling to those people. Why you do that? And when you ask, they say, no, أَمَّا بِنَعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. No. To be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to express your gratitude, there is a big difference between doing that and bragging and boasting and posting things, information about you, about your family, etc., that may create hard feeling among others. So let's be careful about sharing this kind of information, whether it is within the family or within the social media, because there is no point. You are only you are helping shaitan. You are helping shaitan. I mean, if you're posting things that your friends or your brothers, they don't have. You can afford it, they cannot afford it. Vacations, they cannot afford. Why you do it? Why creating these bad feelings? Just keep it for yourself. Be grateful in a different way rather than boasting. And so you can see from one verse, from just the beginning of the surah, how much we can learn. Then there is another lesson also of parenting and da'wah and tarbiyah, which is raising your child in a good Islamic way. Yaqub alayhi salam did not miss the opportunity to credit that, to remind Yusuf that everything good that is happening to us is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. كذلك يجتبيك ربك ويعلمك من تأويل الأحاديث ويتم نعمته عليك وعلى آل يعقوب كما أتمها على أبويك من قبل إبراهيم وإسحاق إن ربك عليم حكيم. And thus will your Lord choose you and teach you. So that what you have seen in the dream, that's a blessing from Allah. Teach your children all the time. Anything that good that happens in their lives is a blessing from Allah. I always say there is a very short part of the verse in Quran. If we master it and apply it, it can change a lot of things in our life. ما أصابك من حسنة فمن الله. Anything good that happens to you is a blessing from Allah. That's what you need to feel and respond with gratitude, and that's what you need to teach your children. وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. Anything good that is working in your life, any blessing, it's a blessing and favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, and teach you the interpretation of narratives. That skill that you get, Yusuf, that's a blessing from Allah. And then, and complete His favor upon you and upon the family of Jacob. as he completed it upon your fathers before Abraham and Ishaq. So this particular skill that you got, it's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, part of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not only on you, but on all of us, on Ali Yaqub, the family of Yaqub, and even on your grandfathers Ishaq and Ibrahim alayhi salam. All of this is a blessing. يُتِمُّ نِعْمَتَهُ عَلَيْكُمْ. That anything, again, the father is teaching his son a very important concept, that anything good that happens to you is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we will see Yusuf alayhi salam later on doing the same thing. When he was approached by people who noticed that he is righteous, he is special, his behavior is special, distinguished, he credited also that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he learned the lesson from his father. Inna rabbaka alimun hakim. The verses go on to tell us that in the story of Yusuf and his brothers, ayatun lis-sa'ilin. There are signs for those who are looking for signs and looking for guidance. إذ قالوا ليوسف وأخوه أحب إلى أبينا منا ونحن عصبة إن أبانا لفي ضلال مبين. Certainly, when they said, the brothers, Yusuf's brothers, when they said, Yusuf and his brother are more beloved to our father than we, while we are a clan, indeed our father is in clear error. Very important lessons of parenting and dealing with children. That you have to be extremely careful. First of all, you have to be fair. You have no choice to be fair with your children. But you have to be extremely careful not even to give the impression that you are not fair. That's very bad even in the relationship among your children. If they have the impression or the feeling that you favor one of them. And see what's happening to the point that his brothers will start plotting. Now, whether Yaqub showed this or not, that's a different story. But we're talking about even the impression should not be there. Because if some of your children or one of your children feels that is unfavored, she is unfavored, or that you favor somebody else, it's very bad. They will lose that peace of mind and tranquility and confidence in you that you're going to always be fair and you're going to use one standard. A lot of parents commit these mistakes. A lot of parents show clearly that they favor just because one child is better in school, for example, no, that's you may reward good behavior. But when it comes to loving your children and treating them fairly, you have no choice regardless. There is no conditional love for your children. It's not, someone does something good, then you may reward it, but still, when it comes to treating them, you have to be very fair. You can see, again, it's an error. As you're reading the Quran, you are reminded of a number of things already. Is to encourage your children not to brag about anything so that they don't make their brothers or sisters feel bad. Very important. Not to show any sign that you are favoring one of your children. Story go on. These people plotted. They asked their fathers to allow them to take Yusuf with them, and they executed the plan that they had. They threw him in the bottom of a well. Very hopeless situation. Child, the bottom of a well. The bottom of a well. It's a very hopeless situation, but again, there is nothing hopeless with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this surah is full of something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every time He says that He protected Yusuf because He is min al-muhsinin. كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُخْلَصِينَ. So everything that was done to Yusuf from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is because he's a pious person. So when you are in good terms with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. If you are in good terms with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will make way out for you out of any crisis, even if the situation looks hopeless. Keep that in mind, because what happened, Quran keep telling us that everything that Allah has done for Yusuf, saving him, protecting him, etc., because وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُخْلَصِينَ, etc. He was picked by caravan as was planned by his brothers, sold, and ended up in the house of one of the ruling elite of the time. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested him with something that is very hard. He was seduced by the wife of this man who was so nice to him. He was seduced, Yusuf alayhi salam was seduced by the wife of this person. And Yusuf alayhi salam teaches us big lesson. First of all, resisting, ma'ad Allah, fear of Allah not to commit a sin, but then out of faithfulness for the person who was nice to him. What did he say? قال معاذ الله. When she tried to seduce him, he said, قال معاذ الله إنه ربي. Rabbi in this case means the master, the one who bought him. إنه ربي أحسن مثواي إنه لا يفلح الظالمون. He said, I seek the refuge of Allah. Always, whenever you're tested with something, always remember to seek refuge with Allah. That's your protector. I seek refuge of Allah, the refuge of Allah. Indeed, He is my master who has made good my residence. Indeed, wrongdoers will not succeed. Look at the khuluq of al-wafa, one of the characters that is quickly disappearing. For people to be appreciative, grateful. Someone does something good to you, you should be grateful. So Yusuf alayhi salam, two things allowed him to resist this temptations. Is one, ma'ad Allah, and then second is to be faithful and for the person who has done good to him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we protected him because he was إنه من عبادنا المخلصين وكذلك لنصرف عنه السوء والفحشاء إنه من عبادنا المخلصين. Keep in mind that if you are in good term with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will be always protected. Allah will make way for you out of any crisis, even if it looks hopeless, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be on your side and will be protecting you. All of this, we're getting them from those few verses. All these lessons, we're getting them from those few verses. Story goes on, Yusuf ended up in jail. Dhulm, injustice. He was accused falsely and then thrown in jail. And again, another big lesson. You see here, you abstain from haram, and that cost you to be in jail. And what did Yusuf say? رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه. I am ready to pay the price for abstaining from haram. People sometimes, they don't abstain from haram even if there is no price. And people sometimes they go after the haram. So Yusuf alayhi salam, for abstaining from haram, he ended up in jail. And yet he was still, it was okay for him because he said, قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه. He said, my Lord, prison is more to my liking than that to which they invite me. قال رب السجن أحب. If this is the price, I'm ready to pay the price. I'm ready to pay the price to stick to my religion, to my principles, to my values. To avoid haram, I am willing and I'm ready to pay the price. That tells you what? That's the attitude of a believer all the time. When your religion is or your principles are put in one scale, don't even look at the other. On one side, don't look at the other, because these are priceless. It's not like if they raise the price, you're willing to sell. your values or your principles or your beliefs. So قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه. And again, وإلا تصرف عني كيدهن أصب إليهن. Again, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for protection and seeking refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We'll see this later on with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions, when they were forced to choose between their religion and everything else. You either give up your religion, or if you want to migrate, you leave everything else behind. What was their answer? Same. Very similar to Yusuf alayhi salam. Say, our religion, and you can take everything else. They took their houses, they took their businesses, they took everything. People migrated from Mecca to Medina with nothing except religion. But that for them were much more valuable than everything they left behind. So whenever they are forced to choose, the choice is clear. Yusuf alayhi salam, prison or haram, prison. Sahaba, migration, or your life and your business and your possession, etc., migration with deen, with no hesitation. This is, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, how we should be reading the Quran. Take it easy, read slowly, and look for the lessons, look for the message. Don't just read the text. Don't just read the text, because Quran is a text. The story and the text are just vehicle. In between the lines, there are messages and there are lessons, and your job is to extract those lessons and messages. وَتُوبُ إِلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونتوب إليه. نعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, inshallah we'll continue with the Surah Yusuf alayhi salam. It's a beautiful, the whole Quran is beautiful, but Surah Yusuf, it's like if you're watching a play or a movie. It's an amazing. So one scene after the other, and then the curtain comes down, and then another scene, another passage. It's an amazing. The story in the prison of the two men who came to him to ask him to interpret their dreams. Why? Because they saw Yusuf alayhi salam very distinguished behavior. Inna naraka min al-muhsinin. That's the reason that these people came with this request to Yusuf alayhi salam. They justified by saying, we see you someone very special. In prison, whatever he is, a good believer, wherever you are, you provide the example. Your job is to be good ambassador of Islam. Your job is to be a good representative of Allah and your religion and your community, wherever you are. And that's what Yusuf alayhi salam did, and that's what attracted these two people to him. And we will see how he took advantage of that, and we will, in that story, that particular story with Yusuf alayhi salam, of Yusuf with these two people in prison, we will find the best and the only effective way of da'wah. Anybody who want to convey the message of Islam, it's the way Yusuf alayhi salam did. It's that exemplary behavior that will attract people to you, and you credit that to your religion and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Take advantage of that to say that if you see anything special in me, it's not because I'm from this family or that family or this nationality, it's because of my religion and because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Come back inshallah to this. I'm not going to close without mentioning a couple of words about what's going on in Palestine. This is a very sad story again, and there is no end in sight for this vicious cycle. This Israeli government worse than any of the bad ones before, but this is any problem they have, any crisis they have, they want to export it, and always the price is the Palestinian blood and the Palestinian lives. That's the price for them to get out of any political crisis, to get their nation or whatever, their people united to distract people from any issues that their officials have of corruption, the prices always go and bombard Gaza and kill people. And they say they're targeting or to assassinate leaders of the resistance, but in the process, women, children, houses are destroyed, and unfortunately, nobody is saying anything. Keep them in your dua, one. And second, if you have any chance to contact your representative, express your concern. The minimum. It may not make big difference, but that's the minimum you can do. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you for anything that you can do. But if it does not bring the desired results, then that's you did your part. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا توفنا وانت راض عنا واختم بالصالحات أعمالنا واجعل خير أعمالنا خواتمها وخير أيامنا يوم نلقاك. متعنا اللهم بالنظر إلى وجهك الكريم. ربنا ارحم والدينا كما ربونا صغارا وارحم موتانا وجميع موتى المسلمين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد. أقم الصلاة.